very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You are more than welcome to this episode of the Coffee at 11 show, brought to you by wigwam.ie SME Peer Support. Delighted and excited to introduce you to my special guest today, a man that I've been a fan of for several years, a friend of for the last few years, and a man I admire so much, and a man who's literally going to take us on a whirlwind journey, that I can guarantee. Pat Falvey, you're more than welcome. Please say hello and show us your coffee mug, please.
Well, there you are. Hi to everybody, and it's absolutely a pleasure being here. But this was given to me by my parents, and it says, every time I think of you, my wonderful son, you know, the cup, like they actually pride with joy, right? And they overflow with love. And believe it or not, I used to be really crapless about my mother kissing me and hugging me when I went to school. But now I understand that she's in her 80s, how important it is for her to be loved and to get those actually hugs that we're all so much wishing to get these days, you know. So yeah, that's my mug this morning, and I'll enjoy it.
Happy days, Pat. Lovely introduction. Thank you for that, and God bless your mum and dad. Listen, it's great to have you in the cafe. Let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, before I bring the man in himself, tell you only some of the stuff that I know about this man. He's a world-renowned explorer, an author, a serial entrepreneur, a film producer, and a personal and business development coach and mentor. He started his first business, must be a law against this, when he was 6, as one of the youngest door-to-door salesmen in the world, and went on to experience booms and busts throughout his life. He was the first person in the world to climb the 7 summits twice, including Mount Everest from Nepal and Tibet, as well as he walked to the South Pole. Some of us walked to the shopping centre, and this man walked to the South Pole, right? He's completed over 150 expeditions and worked with over 30 tribes, exploring the mindset to succeed in us as humans to be the best that we can be. Pat's life has seen him walk the walk and not talk the talk to enjoy the life he has created. And I'm delighted, Pat, absolutely delighted and thrilled that you took time out of your busy schedule to join us in the cafe today. You're more than welcome, most welcome. So in your words, Pat, bring us right back to those early days and bring us on a journey. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up.
Okay, well, I suppose before I bring you on a journey, like, I just want to say to everyone, like, and especially now, because I get hundreds and hundreds of calls during this period of time, for anyone that's out there, right, and lots of people are, we know them all, right, okay, it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay not to be okay all of the time. And that's actually where they need help from people like ourselves that actually have that positive mindset. I also want to say, like, you know, that even though I'm part of your tribe this morning, you know, it's always a nerve-wracking thing, because he only rang me on Tuesday, actually was my birthday, to know would I come along today. So I don't know what the tribe is like. So therefore, that's always a tendency of nervousness, as you can imagine yourself, if it was yourself. So I just want to say I'm part of your team today, part of your tribe. And can I ask you to be part of my tribe, right, okay, as I'll try to explain, like, my life and my attitudes, my attributes, and what has created them, like from hunger to everything else. I also want you to do yourself a favor, right? I want you now, as I'm sitting here, right, okay, I want you to think about what you want. Yes, what you want next, right? You've had all you've had to do, no matter what it is. Like, you know, people say to me, what, you know, I've done a lot of stuff, right, okay, but what's my next? What's next for Pat Falvey, right? Well, before I even start, I'm going to tell you, because what's next for me is to become the best grandfather that I can be, and mainly because I was a fucking lousy father, right? And for me now, right, okay, that's what life is about. So in relation to this, what I'll do is, they say a picture, by the way, paints 1,000 words. So to try to explain who I am and what I am and where that mindset would have come from, I just want to share it with you. And then I'm going to leave Colm come in and out and actually ask me questions, like, in relation to it, and I'll pop back into the screen again. Well, anyway, I'm just delighted to be here. Like, Colm has asked me, like, to tell a little bit about my life. I've decided to actually show it up in, you know, graphic form, in the sense of some pictures that I've taken from around the world. I have 250,000 pictures, you know, from around the world. But first and foremost, I'm known as the Accidental Rebel. I'm known as the Accidental Rebel because of the fact I came from a poor background, and I was a dreamer. And most people said, who the fuck do you think you are to have these dreams, goals and aspirations, because you come from such a background? And so I just told them up their backsides. So, but my life is no different than any of yours, right? Okay, and as you see, this is my last book, The Accidental Rebel. But my life is about success, failure, fear, pain, selfishness, yes, passion, victory, death, and indeed reflection. Now, I suppose throughout my life, what I've learned is that we are all ordinary. Every single one of us are ordinary, and it's what we do that makes us extraordinary. My total belief is that in another way that we are all then extraordinary. So I believe every single person that I come across can fulfill what they want to do, provided they have certain attributes. And I'll talk about that later. So I suppose Falvey, what is he? He's a dreamer, he's a darer, he's a doer, and he will try to achieve things, you know, that some other people would say is impossible. But as an adventurer, what I've done is I've completed about 150 worldwide expeditions all around the world. Now, 50 adventurers that I've worked with, believe it or not, have died trying to fulfill their dreams, and I'm still alive. Now, there's a reason for that. Mostly actually people that have died in what I do, right? They become complacent, they make mistakes, and they die. And indeed, I've nearly died myself once or twice, so I'm a good advocate to know what can go wrong. Now, more so than that, I've been fascinated, and I've seen all of you there today, and I know some of you. I've been fascinated. What is it that makes good leaders, good managers, good teams, you know, good people, and why some succeed and others fail doing exactly the same thing. And you know, it's amazing, because one person could be, two people could do the same thing, and one will succeed and one won't. And basically, I've done a lot of studies on that. But I believe that us as human beings, that we all have the same ability to succeed in what we want in life. And that's the reason why I want you to think about before we finish. And I'll give you the secret of how to achieve anything that you want if you have these attributes. So I want you to think about it. So when we come out, I'll ask you again. And of course, we will succeed if we have the opportunity. And opportunity is very important that to succeed in what we do. But a little bit about me. My occupation, as you will see here, is very unusual. I run expeditions all around the world. You know, I came from Cork City in a council house, but I run expeditions to the most unusual, the most remote, the most beautiful, and indeed, believe it or not, the most dangerous and challenging places on planet Earth. As an entrepreneur, I worked on 5 continents, and I meet and I work with amazing driven people. Like this week, for instance, I've been actually speaking like in Asia, New Zealand, Australia, North America. And, you know, when I see people and I see you at the other side of my screen, right, okay, and even we're on lockdown, right, okay, it's that type of energy. And we seen the energy a while ago that ignites me to do what I do. And a couple of weeks ago, well, when I say on Tuesday, Colm came along and I was doing a thing on a presentation for a corporate next week on Together to the Top. And also, it was a multicultural company. But I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, is there any chance you come to the cafe today and do something uplifting, motivating, colorful, entertaining, and different, and tell us a little bit about your life? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, can you tell us like how at 15 you left school to become a millionaire, how you became a millionaire, tried to take your own life, went off on a different course, and actually became the person you are today. Now, I've had a lot of different careers, and I know most of you have had too. We've had our ups and our downs, we've been kicked, we've been pushed sideways, but just a little bit about who I am. Well, that's what I am. I started as a bricklayer, then became a developer. Believe it or not, when I was broke at 29, I set up a bank with no money. And then I went into insurance, but at the same time I tampered around being an adventurer. That in turn went on to become an explorer. And believe it or not, I couldn't read or write properly in my 30s. I then became an author. Lucky enough at the stands at the moment, we have there's 7 books that we have now out there. And then I became a filmmaker in my 50s, and that went on to win Sundance. And I think about 40 or 50 million people seen it worldwide. And, you know, so I've done a lot of different stuff. But more so than all that, the bricklayer that was the door-to-door salesman at 6, right, okay, is a way more than all of those combined together, and so are you. Because every single one of us, if you see the end line there, we're survivors. And basically that's what life is about. We get put on earth for a short period of time, so therefore we're survivors. Now, for over 30 years, I have traveled the world for 7 months of every year on my adventures. I seek out challenges that stimulate my interest and that of the teams that I work with. And I hope you got it, the teams that I work with, because without my teams, I am nothing. And then for 5 months of every year, what do? I go around the world talking about what I've done, which actually amazes me, you know, in the sense of that they want to listen to me. I do films, and I'm also an entrepreneur that deals with money management and lots of different things that we've set up. Over the last couple of years, like, we've become the biggest outdoor adventure company in Ireland, and we work in all of those places. So if any of you haven't actually had a bucket list yet, just contact me if you do. In the recent times, as I matured, someone said I look very calm. I set up a thing called the Forever Young Club. That's for 50 to 90-year-old people with a mindset that actually, you know, want to fulfill whatever they want to do in life. And, you know, I have a collaboration, you know, with lots of different people like that have come in relation to that. And that's very important to me, because this is, believe it or not, my legacy piece. And we all live for a legacy. That's outside my children, of course. So that's it. That's Falvey. It's about success, failure, fear. I've been broke, actually, believe it or not, twice. So therefore, when things like this happen, I can get scared shitless. But I still actually have to deal with my fears. Selfishness, I say, some of you would have known how ruthless I'd have been in my day. And, you know, it's all part of the tapestry of life. But today what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you a story, because that's what exactly Colm asked me to do.
And before, Pat.
Yeah?
I'm rolling here to keep up with you, right? So before we go there, Pat.
Yeah.
There is some introduction. This is a Coffee at 11 show that will not be surpassed. Wonderful to have you in, and thanks for laying. We're only getting started here, ladies and gentlemen, right? So thank you for laying such a rich tapestry. A couple of things though I made notes of. This week alone, you spoke in Asia, New Zealand, Australia, North America, and Pat, the Coffee at 11 show.
Yeah, and like on Saturday, I'm with Sanchez Chopra and his wife doing a thing in America, but there's guests from New Zealand, and like, so therefore, this by the way, when I was fearful of going broke, just at the start of the COVID, right? Okay, it turned out because I was writing a piece on happiness that a friend of mine rang, who was the chief executive of a company, and said, I'm really down. And I said, what the fuck have to be down about? And he says, what do you mean? He says, like, I'm down COVID. And I said, why are you down? He said, but why wouldn't I be down? I said, you're alive, you're breathing, right? So I said, breathe. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many people dead, like, and you're unhappy, like, with the fact of what's happening. So anyway, what happened is that started.
No, great. Okay, just to sorry, a couple of things. You mentioned you're a survivor, and you honoured everybody in the cafe today by recognising the fact that we all also are survivors. So thank you for that. You also said teams. You're nothing without a team. Hands up and hats off to everybody, because we're all part of teams, and I'm blessed with a wonderful team that helped this Coffee at 11 show become something. So thank you for that. And fascinated by your Forever Young Club. We might touch on that towards the end again. I'd like to get a little more information about that, and I see some nodding heads in the cafe. Right, back to you.
I'm going to just tell a story today, but it's a story just similar to yours, by the way, and everybody that's here, because we've all gone through it. It's life. It's about success, failure, setting goals, staying focused, and indeed following the dreams that we have. Now, what I have learned as an explorer, and by the way, when I talk about an explorer, we're all explorers in our own lives, because life is an exploration of an amazing things. But what I have learned is that life is like what you're looking at here. It is a mountain. And every single one of us have mountains to climb. And I know ever before I ever said a word today, and I know some of your histories, right, that in other words, you've all gone through your own mountains. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you on a journey with me. What I want you to do, and you've all heard of the Dalai Lama, right? And he said, and I know that we're all here like as being inquisitive in relation to what we want to learn ourselves. The Dalai Lama said, like, you know, our minds are like parachutes, and unless they're open, they don't work. So just keep your mind open to some of the stuff I might have to say. You might agree, you might not, but do me a favor, please ask questions afterwards, and like cut me out of this column anytime you want, because I could keep going for 4 hours if it was a master class, right? But I will bet, like, by the way, that's in Antarctica, as you can see, is the South Pole. But I would bet that there's not one person in this room have not heard of the places that I will actually touch on today. Mount Everest, Antarctica. For me, they vibrate energy. They send actually a shiver up through my spine that, like, sometimes it could say they sent the hair out to the top of my head. But what I've learned from these is, and by the way, these that fuel the imaginations of scientists, whalers, adventurers, explorers, armchair travelers. These are man's greatest physical and logistical challenges. Indeed, when I was on the Antarctica, I was burning 9,600 calories a day. I had to learn how to do that, by the way. I was burning 23 megajoules of energy, which is equivalent to 2 marathons a day. So 60 days was equivalent to 120 consecutive marathons. Now, that didn't impress myself, but basically there was a girl that did it called Dr. Claire O'Leary, 52 kilos, and she did it. So it shows you actually the mindset that you can actually put out in people if it's a case that you can get at it properly. So you might ask, this is Everest. Look, the simple fact about it is anything I do, it's all, whether it's in personal, emotional, or in business, it's the attributes are the same. And we all have them. There's not one person, as I said, haven't heard of the monument to the might of our world, you know, and have used it as a metaphor themselves, say, yes, I've done it, I'm standing on top of the world, like, you know, which is your own Everest in itself. So I've been to amazing places, and remembering I'm a bricklayer, I've seen beautiful sights, I've witnessed terrible tragedies, and no matter where I've been fascinated about what it is that motivates you and I as humans to be the best that we can be in what we do, or need to lead, or need to explore, or need to conquer, or need to be our best no matter what we do. But who am I? I'm the same as you, I'm a family man, right? I'm 63 years of age now. And, you know, the advice the other day, like if you go in and see the video we cut by my father, he said, live every minute, son. And my family are very important to me. The people that you're looking at there, like, you know, I fucked up a couple of times along the way. In other words, that's my wife sitting in the chair, right? She still is my wife. We never got divorced, but we're separated 21 years and we still love each other. And I still have my own room in Beechwood and an office there. So I've been blessed, but I've been blessed because of the fact that the two of us produce the people that you're looking at there, right? The two boys standing there, right, okay, are my 2 sons, the older fellas, and the 2 kids that we're holding are my 2 grandchildren, and the other person is my daughter-in-law. So, you know, we've had all our own traumas. Like little Jack has had his own health problems. He had his leg amputated there in November, but like he's a fighter. And you know what he has? He has the power. And he has the power because of the fact that we as a family, like, nurtures him in relation to positivity. And, you know, it's amazing to see that energy in young children. But yes, in the past, to follow my dreams, and I know the likes of Bridget and those that met me in the past would know I've been selfish, I've been ruthless, I've been arrogant to succeed in my own dreams. And I have paid a huge cost for it, by the way. It didn't come cheap. My successes in life, however, because people ask me, how is it, you know, that you're able to do all of those things? But it's been influenced by mentors. And I know every single one of you, right, okay, out there are mentors yourselves. And it's how we look at things that actually leaves that impression on the people around us, our work colleagues, our family, you know, even ourselves, right, okay? It's about seeing that glass half full. But let me bring you back, because I show you the importance of apprenticeship, and I show you the importance of mentors, and in others, what we learn from a very young age. By the way, this is my grandmother. I went to live with her when I was 6 years of age. All her family had left. Her husband abandoned her in that time, believe it or not, with 6 kids, went to World War II, found another woman in England and never came back and never gave her a penny. But I became her apprentice, collecting second-hand clothes when I was only 6. She used to call me her bar of gold, mainly because she couldn't run up and down the steps of 5,000 council houses in Cork. And it became my first collaboration. Now, I was hunted from the door and everything else. Everyone knows about door-to-door salesman, but it gave me a thick neck. But anyway, I used to bring them down, the clothes, down to my grandmother in the Cold Quay in Cork. And she'd sort them out. She'd sell some for rags, and then she'd sell some of the clothes, you know, to the poorer people of Cork, and she'd make money. But believe it or not, it was my first collaboration. And I believe really in collaborations. Like all of you out there, like, you know, I see like as good collaborators, right? But I never forget, when I was 12, I had £750 in the bank in 1969. Right? Now, I didn't even know what money was, but my grandmother was training me to be an entrepreneur. She baited into me then, if you think you can, you will, and if you think you can't, you won't, and you're right in both occasions. And that's a Ford quote as well, but my grandmother used to love it, but she used to actually flake it into me when your grandmother could. Now, my life changed. Something very prolific happened here, because I was actually going down the Cold Quay with my wares, with my lorry load of, my pram load of clothes. And I was stopped by these three Americans, and they wanted to take my picture, this poor Irish kid. So they wanted pictures of poor Irish kids. And they said, could they take my picture pushing the pram? And I said, of course. But before I let them take my picture, I put my hand out, and believe it or not, I got sixpence, and that was my first modeling job. And that's where, from there on in, like, I've been sponsored down to my underpants, like in a lot of places. But my grandmother had taught me, a dumb priest never found a parish. Afterwards had a profound effect on me, because they told me us Irish kids are far better off being poor. And I went back to my grandmother, who you're looking at here, and I said, Nan, are we better off poor? I was told that today. She gave me a flake. That means clatter, or a belt on the face for anyone that's in America or anywhere. And she dragged me into the front room of a small council house, 15 foot across. And this changed my attitude for life. And she put me up. At the time, we all had pictures in the front room. We had 4. And she put me up and dragged my hair up to the Sacred Heart. And she was Catholic, and that was her spiritual leader. Then it was the Pope. And she told me that's the head of the church. She was a rabid Republican, and there was M. de Valera. But then she put me to the top. And as she forced me up, she said, that person up there is the most powerful man in the world. And this is for, you know, a snotty-nosed 12-year-old. And she told me I was as powerful as him. And that actually sat in my mind, and that was JFK. Well, I tell you something for nothing. If you knew my grandmother, I wasn't going to disagree with her. But that affirmation that I was as good as anybody else and I could do anything I wanted to do actually stuck in my mind. So a few years later, I left school to become a millionaire. At 15 years of age, I was a bricklayer. I didn't know how I was going to become it, but I kept on saying it. And of course, everyone said, like, who the F and hell do you think you are? You're a bricklayer. You come from a poor side of the city. Stop saying that you become a millionaire. But my father had gone broke at the time. And sadly, I thought he was a bollocks at the time, like, you know, the way that you have these fights with your father, without ever realizing the pain and anguish he was going through, because as Colm has said, like, he's my greatest mentor. And so we had a bit of strife for a while. But anyway, believe it or not, by the time I got to 17, I wasn't a millionaire. And I was really pissed off, by the way, that I wasn't a millionaire. And I went to my dad and I said, should I go back to college? Well, he sat me down, and another great bit of advice he gave me, and I give anybody, he said, son, you're streetwise, you're clever, you're a dreamer. And we're all dreamers, but most of us, like Lawrence of Arabia said, most people dream in the dusty recesses of their mind to wake in the morning to find that it wasn't the reality. But the dreamers of the day may enact their dreams and go for what they want. In other words, you know, most people are procrastinators in saying what they do. And I've always been taught, don't procrastinate, take action. So I hold that. And he said, like, remember that the success is not in the try, like, it's not in the succeeding, but in the trying. Well, anyway, I stayed on, and I told everybody, and I attracted a load of business people, and, you know, I became an apprentice to a lot of them. And by the time I was 20, I was married to Marie, as you see here. Absolutely, I can't believe, like, you know, I had that long hair, and that I looked so young. And by the time I was 21, I had everything that I could have ever had imagined. I had a big house, the flashy cars. I was an arrogant asshole, and I was confident. I in turn, at that stage, had over 200 people working for me. By the way, that house that you're looking at there was paid for when I was 21, you know, which to me still amazes me. But by the time I was 28, this guy that thought he had the Midas touch without ever realizing who Midas was, in 1986, if you remember, there was a big recession. I'd about 5 million borrowed. I was on 2% above the DIBAR, which is at 36. The mortgage rate was at 18. And I had built this amazing team. And this is the reason why teams are very important to me now, that I had disrespected. I lost my dream thinking I was on top of the world, but instead, right, okay, I was going down. And these people that clung behind me when I was going up now abandoned me, and only rightly so, because I was an arrogant asshole. Then I started blaming everybody, including my wife and my kids and the state and things like that. And I got into a thing which is called depression. Now, and I know since everybody in the world like gets it, like, so there's nobody immune to it. And whereas Marie backed me completely, every penny she had, she put behind me. She actually, you know, signed personal guarantees, which the bank came after her. As you see there, we had 2 kids to take our family home. That in turn put pressure under me. And I lost my, and what happened is they put me on Prozac for depression, except that I wasn't actually clinically depressed. And I found out after I was self-esteem depressed, which is a huge difference, by the way, if it's a case you're suffering from any of the following things I'll talk about. So I tried to take my own life. One day I couldn't afford to pay them in, and I said, if I couldn't afford to pay them in, I take my own life. And I went in a car at about 100 miles an hour, and I went for a wharf in Cork City down by Barry's Timber Yard. And just as I was entering the water, just about to go in, I spotted my 2 sons' faces in my mindset, and I jammed on the brakes. I didn't, like, I thought I was gone. And if I was, I wouldn't be telling you the story now. And then I cried. I went back, drank a bottle of whiskey in the office. I went home about 3 o'clock in the morning. Of course, Marie nearly killed me. I'm not alone for drinking the bottle of whiskey. It was one of those terrible times in my life. But also, you know, for that she see me coming in so late in that state. But then I told her what happened. And you know what happened? And this is very important. Like I put on the earlier pictures when our family was there, the unsung heroes in her life, she had my back. And I want you to think about now, like, you know, throughout your life, who's the people that have your back, right? Then she said, go tell your father. I told my father, I told the banks, and believe it or not, they all had my back. So anyway, that's a long story short. You can ask me questions on that. Yeah.
Pat, let me just stop you there. Would you mind coming back into the room for a sec? Pat, I just wanted to bring you back in to honour your story. Everybody in the cafe is honouring you and your story. And I think we all felt, clearly we didn't feel the depth of emotion that you went through, but we all felt that moment. And that moment where you jammed on the brakes because you saw a picture of your 2 kids in your mind's eye, you know, very palpable, very powerful. And thank you for sharing that. And you said at the very start of the show, you said, your lovely phrase, you said, it's okay not to be okay. Will you finish that sentence one more time, please?
Okay, like, and we've all been there, I'm sure. It's okay not to be okay. Because everyone, like, the whole thing about us, even us as inspirational speakers and mentors and coaches, right? Okay, we're all trying to have people up, right? But there is times it's okay not to be okay. But it's not okay not to be okay all of the time, if you get that. And that's a bit of advice that my mother gave me, right? And that's when you need help. And what happens with depression, and I've been a mentor in Suicide Aware for years, right? Okay, and as I say, I wouldn't be telling this story if I had taken my own life. It's so important to ask for help when you get into these situations. And, like, you know, the biggest, you know, illness in companies today is mental health, right? It's stress, it's anxiety, it's what I had up on the board there, right, okay? And it's very important that it is allowed for people to feel that. So it's okay not to be okay. And, like, I have a philosophy myself, like, you know, that I hang around, you know, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with. So I do hang around with positive people, but even all the positive people I know are not okay sometimes. So it's okay not to be okay.
Love it. Thank you, Pat. Thank you indeed. Before we go to the next chapter, right, because of many, a couple of things that I made notes of. Loved the fact that your granny called you her bar of gold. Loved that, right? She gave you a flaking back in the day because, as you say, they were allowed to back in the day, but it seems to have done you no harm. Love the fact that she lifted you up by the ear and showed you JFK. I said, you can be as powerful as this man someday. Love the fact that you got your first modelling job, right? And I know there's an underpants sponsoring story, which we'll get to in a little while, right? I'm looking forward to that one. And the fact that you were pissed off that you left school at 15, told the world you were going to be a millionaire, and by 17 it hadn't happened. That's just phenomenal stuff. And as you say, you know, everybody saw you as a poor kid from Cork City, and other people saw you as just a bricklayer. But it was what was going on in here that made all the difference. And it's what has kept going on in here has made all the difference ever since. Is that fair to say?
It is, and you must understand like why I felt like that, because my father's business went broke, right? He turned to the alcohol for a small part of time. And what happens, I never forget, my mother dragged him out of a pub one night, and she brought me with him to drag him out. He was pissed. And she told him like she was leaving him. And believe it or not, I thought then he was a bollocks, right? And our family was never going to be poor again, right? So it's the hunger that drove this passion, right? Okay, but in turn, like, I was to make the same mistakes myself and go broke myself. And I've heard my kids say, Dad, like, you know, you're an asshole that you actually followed this career of an explorer and an adventurer. Like, you know, you should have been making money. But too many of us are driven by money, not happiness and not passion. So I try to be, you know, live my authentic self. So, but you know, that's another story, like, you know. Well, basically, because this is technology aerospace, but basically there I was inside in my office, and this guy came into my office because his daughter told him that I, you know, was depressed, and he asked me to go hill walking. And this is very important as well for people. When you're in the state of depression, right, okay, and to me it was self-esteem depression, which is another big difference, by the way, and that's basically what I cope mainly with people now. He asked me to go hill walking, and I tried to get rid of him because I said, like, I'm a workaholic, not a walkaholic. But I went for a climb with him, with older people, and I was trying to get up the hill in Mangerton first, and I was bait out. And I sat by the rocks and I looked at the lakes of Killarney, which I now like live near and overlook actually. And I said, what are you doing next week? And he said, we were going to Carntool. And this is Carntool here. It's Ireland's highest mountain. Hopefully I'll catch some of you climbing it someday and coming down and actually probably staying at the mountain lodge or whatever. And when I got to the top, the banks were taking Marie to court and me to take our family home. But I lost 3 nights sleep that week. Not thinking of the fact that my home had been taken from me, but thinking I might die on this mountain. 3 people had a big accident the week before and were rescued off it. It became my Everest. And that's the reason why I know Everest changed. And lost 3 nights sleep. And when I got to the top, as you see here, I got a light bulb moment. I was so excited. I didn't even know at the time that I was doing this. But I was jumping with joy, and Val turned to me and he said, what's wrong, Pat? And I shook his hand and said, I'm going to climb Mount Everest. Well, what I now did is I set, announced to myself, another big dream. I was dreaming big. And I now realize that following the dream is where the success lies, not in achieving it. But my new ambition to Everest gave my life a sense of purpose and an objective that I'd strive towards. And I say that to people all the time, right? Now, on the way, the most important thing is I would achieve a lot smaller successes, which would give me the opportunity to rebuild my business, but most importantly, my self-esteem. And a great story, like in The Accidental Rebel, is how I set up a bank with no money. I went to all my opposition, told them what was happening, and if they bidded on the land, that my kids would be thrown out of a house, and not one of them bidded on the land. Now, some of them joke and say I threatened to break their legs if they did. So that means the banks couldn't get the personal guarantee on the thing. And basically, within a month, I was back in business again, had huge cash flow, and I was lending mock money. You know, like, bankers love me for this one because they, you know, I do a lot of strategy meetings for banks, big banks all around the world. But what I found here is you have to think like a rebel. You have to become a maverick. You have to think outside the box, like as if you stand outside the box. If you stay in the box, I would have given up. You know, my mother gave me some great quotes. If I get a chance to tell you later, I will. But then what happened is I retired from the corporate world. I had a dream of climbing Everest. At this stage, I was doing very well on both, knew that I had to focus on one, and retired from the corporate world at the age of 40 to follow my dreams as an adventurer, a speaker, you know, a coach and a mentor. And I coach some of the top people in the world, like in climbing, and I also coach a lot of people that are in business. And like, I'm a business coach. Right? And I'm a business coach, not that I've read the books, because I've walked the walk, and I know a little bit about business, and I know a little bit about motivating people. But you know what? The thing I fucking forgot. Whereas I was motivated in every single aspect of my life, other than one thing, which actually fell apart. And you know what that was? And I'm just throwing this in as a warning, my family. That's my one regret. You know, I remember my son coming to me after finishing Antarctica, and they still love me to bits, as you can see. And they said, Dad, you know, we're very proud of you, but you know what you missed? So to fulfill everything I've done, I've missed a huge amount. I miss parent-teacher meetings, I miss graduations, I miss funerals of my cousins, I miss funerals of my uncles and aunts, I miss weddings. Now that I look back at it, if I had a little bit more balance, and I think that's the thing with maturity, and that's the thing with working with young people. And I work in business now with a lot of young people, and the maturity of an older person and the tenacity of a younger person can work. So the lessons would never be forgotten that I had learned then. But you have to move on. You can't actually stay stuck. And that's the reason why I say it's okay not to be okay. You know, you move on. So now you could see my adventures took me all around the world, the highest, the coldest, the loneliest, most remote places on planet Earth. I've lived and I've worked with over 30 tribes of people, experienced their way of life from modern day man to the Stone Age tribe. While I was down here, I was looking for the only female warrior tribe in the world. It's part of my anthropological studies in the sense of 2,000 women, 2,000 years, no men. It's not fascinating? No, try to figure that one out. So what I've learned from that is that ever since the evolution of mankind, and we talk about COVID now, we've been changing every single decade, like, you know, like since we came out of the water like monkeys and we went up, reached the tree and we became who we are. We're changing all the time. It's okay, it's normal. This is actually going to be the normal of whatever it is. And we will get back to being normal, right? Because throughout the course of all of our lives, we're all faced with many challenges, no matter who we are. We set goals, targets, ambitions, and sometimes, you know, life is a bit of shit, and we have to deal with the shit too. So that's life. And if it's the case you don't accept life, then it's not worth living. So you take the good with the bad. Now, then I went on, and as I said, like what really gave me the platform worldwide is that I climbed Everest, crossed Antarctica, and did physical and mental things that people had told me was impossible. Now, the one thing I do know is about you have to acknowledge the risk. At the moment, we have a huge risk. We can be complacent. And when we're complacent, things can go wrong. Sometimes we have to stick to the rules because that equals survival and success. But of course, being a rebel, sometimes there is time to break the rules. And I broke many of them, but it's knowing when to break the rules is the important thing. It's like setting up a bank with no money. I'd be arrested today. Like if I was lending more money, that's what I did. So in breaking the rules, right, okay, this is what happens in what I do now. And I learned a huge amount from my business. Breaking the rules in what I do now, people died. Over 50 climbers I've climbed with are dead. What I've learned is that survival for me is in the detail. It's in the planning, the training, the communication, the execution, the direction. I now use the lessons I learned in my business career, in my exploration career, back into my coaching and back into my business career as well. And what I did find out, like Everest, that every day, like if we don't actually change the rules on Everest and change in the challenging times that we're going to have there, we could end up here like Mallory. That's Mallory's body, by the way, 73 years afterwards. Like on Everest, we've got to focus on the changes and most importantly, adapt, not alone ourselves, but also the teams of people we manage, or we will fail. It's about the teamwork. A great verse that I learned, right, okay, and this is Chomolungma, goddess mother of the earth, to reach the top of that is the gold. But after I tried to take my own life, my mother gave me a great story. It was about the Special Olympics, 1968. And, you know, as I'm talking to my screen and I can't see, like, you know, but I'm looking at the slides and they're exciting me because it always does. She told me a story about, and this is the reason why I love teams and I love tribes, 8 Special Olympians going for gold, silver and bronze. They planned it for 4 years to get it. They were at the starting line, 68,000 people in the auditorium. The gun went off and they shot off down to win gold, silver and bronze, but one little girl fell. And then what happened is immediately the second little girl stopped and the whole auditorium stood and she went back and picked her up. But what was amazing is the other 6 people stopped too. And they all went back, they linked hands and they came across the winning line together. And they all won the gold medal, right? That's what we lost. This is why tribal, you know, like what we're doing now, communication and stuff like that, right? Okay, getting together. I know for a fact some of you will have my back in the future, right? Some of you, we will work together doing something. Some of you will become part of my Forever Young Club. Some of you might even buy a book or 2 in the time. But let me tell you about Everest, because that's Mount Everest. That's the challenge now that I had, right? People said, oh, you're going to die. 1 in 4 would die. And I never forget, like my dad said, will you take up golf, son? Like, you're going to die. And like, well, where are we going to be left? Until the following day on the Cork Examiner, there was an article, man got hit with golf ball, dies. And then I realized, you know, no matter what you do, there is risk. So therefore, it's about calculated risk, it's all about. So I learned all about the 3 people like that.
I love it, I love it, I love it. Pat, come back to the cafe for a sec, would you please? I love it. Rapturous silent applause here in the cafe. Some journey. Some journey, and I love the fact that despite some quite literally deadly seriousness, literally speaking, right, you're able to bring humor into it. And, you know, whatever percentage of climbers will die, and then a fella gets hit by a golf ball and you use that to excuse yourself to your dad, who, as you said already, is your greatest mentor. Loved the fact that you were honest enough to say that the balance got out of whack. I think we've probably all suffered from that over the years, perhaps still do at times. Love the fact that no more than you said at 15, I'm leaving school to become a millionaire. You made the decision and then you made it happen. It wasn't quite the straight route you hoped, but as soon as you got to the top of Carrantoul, having bravely fought your friend off for some time, as soon as you got there, you said, I'm going for Everest. Like, it wasn't, I'm going to the next peak or the highest peak in Scotland. I'm going to the top of the world. And again, you've done that. You also spoke to the importance of sticking to the rules, that there's a time to stick to the rules and there's a time to break the rules. And the secret is in knowing when it's important to stick to the rules. Clearly in your adventures as an explorer, sticking to the rules will save your life and save the lives of those around you. Absolutely fantastic story, ladies and gentlemen. Would you agree? You get the thumbs up all around the cafe. Wonderful. Lovely to have you in the cafe here today. Thank you indeed. Have you time to bring us to Antarctica?
Things like this can happen. I've seen people lose finger and toes from mere minutes of exposure. She had to deal with all of that. Look, this is a friend that lost a foot. To get to the top of Everest, for instance, you also have to deal with the fact that you have to deal with your mental mindset, which means like into thin air, right? Okay, like it's not very nice to have to deal with the fact that someone can die. That's a dead body, by the way, that's on top of Everest. And you have to pass that and you have to deal with that psychologically. But to get to the top of Everest is like, you know, the same as eating an elephant. You break it down bite by bite. You appraise it. You do it step by step. You know, on the way, as I said, look, I've seen people died. I failed, you know, twice on Everest, but I kept my focus and got there, you know, and here we are now, like getting to the top. That's actually a body outside the tent of Claire and I's, and she had to deal with that too, by the way. And remember, we're in the death zone now, and I failed, as I say, twice on Everest, once in 93 and once in 2003, but that's the Hillary step. This is one of the most amazing places on planet Earth to go. You give it everything. You get there. I nearly died once, actually, in 2003, just at this spot, an hour from the summit, and I turned. But this is what it's like. The energy is amazing. Like, even when I look at this, that's, by the way, seabeds that are laid down that were at the bottom of the sea. Fossils of sea creatures are encrusted. But I did something. The size of the summit of Everest is the size of a snooker table. That's what it's like looking from the top. When we got to the top, a dream had been realized. You know, and I just have to say in here very fast, it's not about me, it's about, you know, all the team. Our backroom team here, you have it there as well. It's about the fact of the unsung heroes, which I'm getting very little time. But I did something, and I want to show you this. Very special being a Corkman on top of the world. By the way, when we got to the top of the world here, there was 15 on the top only that day, and 3 died. But this is me doing something like as a Corkman. Oh, oh. That's the highest father in the world. I fucked. I'm sorry. That's the highest father in the world. I'm breathless. I can barely breathe. It wasn't the most majestic, but it's gone off the top of the world. Well, anyway, that's gone off the top of the world. But like, what was it like to be there? It was amazing. There was no roaring crowds, no television cameras. There was just me and Claire and Pemmigelji, Sherpa, Nima, Dorji. And we had that platform to ourselves when I did that. But sadly, before we left the summit, I could see a storm coming in off the Bay of Bengal. And I said to Claire, I said, let's get out of here. You know, we had to get home because that wasn't the summit. The summit was actually getting down. We had achieved our Everest. We had dreamed big. And we had a great time following our dream to do it. But what was amazing here, I was ready to retire as my 58 expedition. But Claire turned to me on the way down, and you know what she said? What's next? So then from there, believe it or not, I said, how about the 7 summits? And the following year, I became the first person in the world to climb the 7 summits, both sides, north and south from Everest, including the 7 summits. But amazingly, Claire, who only started with me 3 years previous because of conviction and passion and belief and being part of a good team, became the 15th woman in the world only. And this is on top of the highest mountain in Antarctica. And this is amazing because it's like outer space. And as we came off there, do you know what Claire said? She said, what's next? And as you can see here, the cold of it, that's -60. It's so cold you could catch a kettle of water, fire it in the ground, and in a cup, throw it up in the air, and by the time it comes down, it's in crystals. That's her just after lifting her goggles. So I put an ad on the paper, and I wanted to prove something else then, that ordinary men and women could do anything that they wanted to do if they want to do it. And I'm asking you now, what do you want next? And I'll give you the secret later. But the thing with it is, I put an ad on, the Shackleton ad in the reverse. I said, ordinary men and women wanted for extraordinary expedition, I train, you may die. And I got 7,500 applicants. I trained the biggest group ever to cross South Georgia, and then I took 2 of those people with me and Claire, and we walked to the South Pole. We then had to train to eat 9,600 calories a day to survive in the freezer, burning 24 megajoules a day in energy, 2 marathons a day, which was equivalent to 140 or 120 marathons, right? And living in Antarctica is amazing because there's no hotel rooms, there's nothing, like freaking nothing, for thousands of miles all around you. We passed and went beyond Endurance and went beyond Shackleton. Here we are at that. And on top of that, that was actually a bit of film showing us there at the South Pole, the pivot, that little pole there. We became time travelers, walked all around the pole, because all the meridians go through there. So I've been on the North Pole, the South Pole, top of Everest, 150 other expeditions, and basically what I do is I bring people away on them now. But the one thing that has happened there is, even after doing all that, right, when we came away off the South Pole, the big question was,
what's next? What's next? What's next?
And believe it or
what's
not,
next?
that what's next for me was, and I have lots of other things like the Forever Young Club, was to become the best grandfather that I could be. But just take a look at this. This is powerful. This is so powerful. This is a 6-year-old, right, okay, now who has lots of problems, like, and as I say, he's had his leg amputated in November. But this is the positivity that I believe that we can help with our children, with our staff, with other people that we have.
What are we?
Explorers!
Who's explorers?
Jack!
And who else?
And Wanda!
Yeah, and show me your explorer hat.
Rah!
And what have you got? Show the people what you've got. A rucksack, and what else have you got? Look here, look.
Hat!
Look, what's this? What's this? Show
The power!
What has Jack got?
The power.
So we all have the power, and it's only us have the power. I don't have it for you. You don't have it for me. We can have the power if we believe it. There's something I do which I'll talk to you when I get out of this virtual room, right, about having the power. But this is what life is about. It's about family. It's about also exploring the mindset you need to realize your dreams and goals. You only have one life. It's like my Buddhist mentor said to me, life isn't a rehearsal, it's a performance. That's all our family now. Like, you know, there's 4 generations there. There's the father, the mother, the grandchildren, our parents, all my siblings, my nieces, my nephews. And that was a present for Dad for, you know, for last Christmas, because we're all still alive. And I know that 50% of us will probably be dead by the time we're 80. And by the way, that could be me as well.
Yeah, there's build a bus going on everywhere. There's joy. There's love in the room, Pat. There's love in the room. That is an unbelievable. I was aware of snippets of the Pat, right? But that's an unbelievably honest and human story, and the way you've told it, and you brought it from, you know, quite literally from when you were 6 years old, around to your little grandson, who's now 6. That's a, you know, phenomenal story, start to finish, and then to see little Jack, isn't that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, little Jack. And he's got that power, right? And I'm really sorry to hear, I'm sure everybody in the cafe is saying, terribly sorry to hear that he's had an illness and he's after losing his leg. But, you know, he's a Falvey, so there ain't no stopping him, right? It'd be very interesting.
But you know what, I did ask you to think of something, and I just want you to do it now, right? Okay, and I want everyone in the room, if they can think of this. I asked you to think about what you wanted, right? Okay? I want you to hold that in your mind, and I want you to do something with me like Jack did there. But I'm going to give you the attributes of how to achieve anything you want in life. And it's not easy, because you have to do this. And it's about want. And my mother was just one of the mentors that she taught me, and I teach Jack, and hopefully he'll pass to his grandchildren. And I pass to all my audiences all around the world. Want. Most important thing. If you want something bad enough, you have to go out and fight for it, to give up your time and your peace and your sleep for it. If your life seems so lonely and useless without it, but all that you do is you dream and you plan is about it. If gladly you fret for it, but then you sweat for it, but then you go for it. But when you go for it, you go for it with all of your capacity, your strength and tenacity. If you simply go after the things in life that you want, though tired, gaunt and lonely, and if day after day you besiege and beset it, you know what will happen, Colm? You will get it. That's a fact. And what happens with lots of people, they want things, they like being given stuff, but unless they go up and actually go for it, you know, most of the times they don't get what they want. And the other thing is I have said, think about what you want. Have you all thought about what you want? I can't see everybody. Have you all got it? Can you do me a favor? I'm here as part of your team. Can you all catch your fist like that? Like it's in my book, You Have the Power to Explore the Mindset. Do you all have it? Right? And I'm going to ask you to follow me now on this room, right, okay, to do this. And do it to the best of your ability in your share. You're looking at yourself, by the way, on that screen. And just say, I have the power! Go on. I have the power! Again, I have the power! I have the power! Well, let me assure you, you and you only have the power to do whatever you want to do. Not me, not your mother, not your father, not your husband, not your wife. It's you have the power. Now, you can buy the book as well, by the way.
Pat Falvey. Unbelievably beautiful in every sense. Thank you for honouring us today by coming into our little cafe and joining us on the Coffee at 11 show. That was just stupendous. We've gone way over time, but that's not a problem in the slightest, right? Not a problem in the slightest, because anybody, if you have to go, you know, sorry to lose you, but we'll have the replay out later. We fully understand, because we have gone over time. But it's been so rich, and I'd love to open it up, if I may, Pat, if you have the time. Can we open it up to Q&A from the floor? Is that okay with you, Pat?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Before I do that, I'm going to ask you, if I may, and we spoke about this earlier, just one tip. what tips would you give to somebody, your nearest and dearest, little Jack?
Okay.
Can you give us a tip?
Basically what I'll do is in that, right, okay, because, you know, I do this, you know, and I'm always ready to give someone advice that I would think is worth. First and foremost, have resilience, right? Resilience is one of the most important things, and that can be learned, by the way. It's also about believe in yourself, right? Even in this bad time, believe no matter what's going to actually happen to you, that you have the ability to do and get out of it, right? The other one is face your fears. As you can see about fears, what happens with most people is they run away from their fears, but in actual fact, their fears bite them in the arse, right? So just tackle them, and half the time it's not half as bad as you think, and things will get better. Look after your mental health, by the way. That's very, very important. They were treating me with freaking Prozac, and I was actually suffering from self-esteem depression. And by the way, there is a huge amount of a difference. And, you know, you can throw people into it. Stay fit because it enacts the endorphins. Get out into the air. Try to get those endorphins going, right, okay? Or if not, like, just get up a few thousand steps per day. Slow down and love yourself, right? My mother used to always have a great saying, if you don't love yourself, how do you expect anyone else to love you, right? Because if you don't love yourself, you're not being your authentic self, which means that's what's creating the fact that you don't love yourself for not being yourself, right? You know, there's a great saying is, right, and I know, like, some of you may have in the past saying, like, you know, who's this guy, Pat Falvey, with all these dreams, like, and goals and things like that? Is he a bit not much and things like that? But I learned one thing from my grandmother and my parents. It's none of my effing well business what you think about me. It's none of my business what you think about me, right? Because of the simple fact, if I leave that affected, then I'm not my authentic self. So it's a great bit of advice, right, okay, for everyone, not to care about the critics. It is not for the critic to put the strong man down because he has never got into the arena to fight blood, sweat and tears to make that goal or dream a reality. You know, be an optimist. You know, don't be a pessimist. Look, the glass is half full no matter which way you look at it. You know, it's just a matter of what side of the glass that you want to be on. And hang around with positive people. Be part of the tribe. Stay connected. This is what we're doing. This is actually, you know, this is one of our social interactivities, right? Okay, we need to see each other. We need to hug each other. We need to touch each other. And the simple fact about it is things will get back to normal. I was there the other day and my little grandchildren, Lily, it was my birthday, and she made a cake at 4 years of age for her granddad. And she was running towards me to wish me, you know, a hug. Now, I'm the one that's at risk, by the way, because I have a couple of conditions. And next time looking at her, and she stops. And she said, Grandad, do I have to give you a virtual hug? Right? I looked at the mother looked at me and she said, oh, fuck that. Right? And she ran towards me, she caught me and she put her hands around me and she gave me such a big hug. Now, I am not in for the fact, I'm a person that will take calculated risk. I'm calculating the fact, yes, if I get COVID, I might die. But if I get COVID, it might be the best thing that ever happened to me. I might get out the other side of it and then I won't give a shit about COVID. And yeah, I'll be cured. Right? So the thing with it is I'm not going to, there's too many people, there's going to be more people, 10,000 suicides are going to be caused from this in England alone because of the mentality of us now being in lockdown. And loads of people are afraid to come out of it, like loads of people are, but you look at the statistics, very important to look. And look, one of the most important things in life is to have gratitude. Be grateful for what you have. And of course, we're all suffering from all of those at some stage, whether it's anxiety, stress. There's not one of you who haven't done it. And the thing I would say, like, you know, as you can see here, I'll try to call it out, be an optimist, have hope, accept yourself, right? Stay connected, find purpose, master your environment and express gratitude. They're the advice that I would give anybody out there to, you know, get over this. And like, get over yourself, build a bridge, get over it. And by the way, to build a bridge, you need people. You're
a beautiful soul, Pat Falvey. You're one in a million. 1 in a million. Listen, it's been an absolute joy. I'm loving this Coffee at 11 journey, but you know, I think you've brought us to a peak, to a summit at the moment. That's for sure, Pat Falvey. Listen, I'd like to open it up, if I may, to comment or questions and answers from the floor. So you need to wave at the camera if you'd like to come in. I'll bring you in live. Paddy Lavette.
Thank you. I just said there in the chat, oh my God, it is a huge privilege to be here this morning. I actually feel like crying. The tears are just behind my eyes. Like, I can't remember when I was so moved, because Pat, you are the most authentic person that I know.
Oh, thank you for that, because that's what I find.
Yes. And that's to me is, you know, like, I'm writing a book at the moment, have been for ages, but anyway, that's another story. But, you know, it's whole part of it is about authenticity. And you know, like when you said there, Jesus, I have never heard this before. Love yourself, because if you don't, you can't be authentic. I thought, wow, like that's a huge part of you know, anyway, look, it was, I don't want to hog the thing, but I'm just completely, look, it was no coincidence I got this text this morning, and I'm just really, really grateful, and I'll catch up with you again. And Colm and the team, I just sent a thank you message there. That was absolutely superb. Thank you.
Thank you. And as I say, like, it's your energy that gives me energy, right? It's basically what we're left with, and I can see most of us here are a little bit older than the younger generation, right? That's where join my Forever Young Club, right? Okay, we will be doing massive things in the future, but it's about actually living the best life that you can be, following your dreams. Don't become a procrastinator, because too many people live in the dusty recesses of their mind, and help others to achieve their goal. That's our legacy. Most of us here are people that want to help people in life, right? So let's just do it. Let's become part of that tribe, like where we mentor people to be that positive. I have the power. You know, look in the mirror every morning when you're down. Look at yourself. And just because your subconscious is a terrible thing at times, right? Okay, but you get your conscious mind over looking at, I'm looking at you now straight in the camera, right? But every morning, like when I'm down, I look at the mirror and I tell myself, I have the power. And I don't mind what's going on inside. And what other people think of me is none of my business. And I tell myself that, because that's my biggest upsetting factor throughout my life. My dad said one time, you know, when someone hates you and really think you're an asshole, tell them you understand. I understand where you're coming from. It really pisses them off, because it doesn't mean what it is.
Thank you.
Lovely stuff. Lovely, Pat. And Patty, thanks. Welcome to the cafe, and thank you for joining. And thanks for that interaction. That was just beautiful, lovely, and well said. I think you expressed a lot of the feelings of a lot of the people in the cafe today. So thank you for that, Patty. As ever, we're going to go to Princess Shelley and hear what's been going on in the cafe while you and I have been busy. Pat, Princess Shelley.
Hey, thank you, Pat. Colm said to hold on to our seats and buckle up, and I mean, he really did sum up today's interview, and thank you so much, you know. I have here Eamon popped in. He's our head of guest services. He popped a chat in saying, and you know, it really did, I read it, and it's beautiful and really applies. It says, all people dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their mind wake in the morning to find that it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous people, for they dream their dreams with the open eyes and make them come true, which is D.H. Lawrence of Arabia. You've probably heard it. But, and I know when Eamon popped that into the chat, Pat, where you were talking about being a dreamer, and that you know, when you left school to be a millionaire, and when you reached your this gorgeous house that you showed us at 21, and it was around that time throughout your story that Eamon popped that in. And when I read it, I nodded, because it's so fitting for your journey. You've probably heard that comment before, have you, Pat?
That was the one book my father gave to me, Lawrence of Arabia, and what that is actually one I quote all the time. It's about most people live in the dusty recesses of their mind to wake in the morning to find it was vanities. But the dreamer of the day may enact a dream with open eyes and make them a reality. They have the power. They have the power. And too many people procrastinate. Too many people actually don't dream big enough. Their ability is far greater than what they're restricted in being told what to do. You know, people are saying, you can't do that, right, okay? And my big thing that my father has taught me, and that was actually one of the first things I learned, was that Lawrence of Arabia quote. And
Yeah,
it's like, you know, it is very true. But can I just say one thing, right, okay, and this must not be forgotten, right? No matter what I've achieved, and I sit here, sometimes I believe, I look at my life, and sometimes I think I'm a film star in a film, right? And I just got the acting role in my own film, right? And it bears no sense of reality, because my reality of appreciation comes, I'm that, you know, I'm that guy living in the council house, the small 6x6 box room overlooking Cork City and the air flights going in. That's me. And I said, like, I have to hit myself times. And the reason why I use the pictures and I get excited, these are real pictures. These are real facts. This is not a pretense. I didn't read about it. I didn't read about my philosophies, right? And whereas sometimes, like I was on to, a guy emailed or got on to me from LinkedIn the other day, and he said that he thought like that I would, that his course would be ideal for me. So I got on like, and it was 1,200 quid or something like that. And I said, well, tell us, what did you do? I said, what do you mean, what did I do? And I said, look, I think what you've done, like he did a great on the whole setup. And he read a lot of books, and there's nothing wrong with that, like, you know. But like if you're a mason, you don't go to a plumber to ask him how to become a mason. If you're in business, you don't go to someone that has read a book, right? And this is what I believe. I've been constantly an apprentice that constantly became a master, that constantly became the mentor. And it pisses me off big times, like when people try to sell themselves up doing stuff, when in actual fact they're not the master. And I always advise people like that. In other words, if I want to become a yoga teacher, I don't do, like, I don't start teaching yoga after 2 weeks of doing a training course and call myself a yoga teacher, you know? So that's basically in relation to that. And dream big.
I think that's what makes you so authentic, Pat. And Eamon just said there that he transcribed that into the chat for people to take a note of as you were telling us that Lawrence of Arabia quote. So thank you so much for that. And it said that Eamon's popped in all the links for people to connect with you on LinkedIn and your website and things like that. And you truly are an absolutely fantastic guest. Kathy Mera, who's joining us from New Hampshire in the United States, she's become regular in the cafe, and she says she's so happy to hear your story. So it really is far-reaching, and thank you so much. And I'm going to hand you back over to your host, Colm. Thank you so much, Pat, for everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, that was lovely. That was just gorgeous. One of my favourite parts of the show is where I get to sit back and listen to what's been going on in the cafe while I've been chatting to my guest. And Pat, it really has been special. And this is the honest truth, you were on my list of people that I wanted to invite into the cafe, and the reason I only contacted you on Tuesday was I saw that beautiful video of you and your dad having a chat when you turned 63. And it was just gorgeous, him being 86. And I said, right, I'll ring him now. And of course, the measure of the man here, right? You can see what this guy does, right? And yet, when I rang him and said, would you come on as my guest? He said, yeah, no problem. What day? Thursday? Yeah, we'll make that happen. And we did make it happen. And it's been an absolute joy. That's the only word I can use, joy. There you go. Listen, we're going to let you go. But before we do, right, I'm going to bring you back to one last story that I thought was wonderful. And it was about Jerry Ryan, God rest him, and an auction. And it started with your modelling career, and then you got sponsorship for your jocks.
Yeah, well, basically I was going to the Antarctic, right? And he was following me to the Antarctic. And you know, when you get to the South Pole, they're all looking for a comment, right? So I got to the South Pole, this amazing place, after 60 days of going through the coldest landscape on planet Earth. And then I got this phone call on my satellite phone, and he goes, Pat, he says, like, you're at the South Pole, that's amazing, like, you know, and I said, yeah, it's great. He said, but how do you really feel? And I said, I feel like a pig in shit. And he goes, what do you mean you feel like a pig in shit? I said, when I was trying to cut the weight, because weight is very important, I cut everything out, and I was to bring one other extra underpants, long johns, right, okay? But I only packed one. So that meant when I went to change it, I had nothing to change it into. And I said, like, you know, but I said, I don't mind whatsoever having wore that one underpants for 60 days. And he said, what? He said, what you do with the underpants? I said, I turned it inside out, right? So I had 30 days with the one way, 30 days the other way, and then I had an underpants, and I was as happy as a pig in shit because I had reached the South Pole. I said, that's amazing. And like, you know, the time in 2007, 8, like it was Celtic Tiger. So he says, we've got to actually auction this underpants. So he auctioned my underpants, and he got 7,000 euros for my underpants. So I'm amazed, like I washed the underpants, posted away to him. I don't know what happened to the underpants anyway, but I came to the conclusion some woman must have bought that underpants and has it up over her bed. And then someone rang me and they said, I think it was a man that bought it. So, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Like, but anyway, that was my, what do they call it? That's my modelling career, like at its best, like to have sold the 7,000 euro underpants. But one of the things I do every now and then, because you can see I'm a hyper person, and
speaking of do like.
Yeah. So basically, I am an introverted extrovert, right? Just in case you don't know what that is, because I can go out for 60 or 90 days on the ice on my own and do stuff like that. I'm also a social capitalist, right? And how I became a social capitalist was very funny. I was going out to Kathmandu to become a dropped-out hippie in Dubar Square after I tried to take my own life smoking pot. Excuse that, like, you know, okay, it was one of those times, right? But when I got there, I had a Buddhist mentor. And as you can see, like, from my background, like, there's a lot of Buddhist stuff here. Like, it's my philosophy. I'm a Catholic by religion, and philosophy is Buddhism. But what they told me, they said, like, go back and don't be stupid. Be the best that you can be. Take your message to hundreds of thousands of people. And then if you make money, if you really feel bad about being a capitalist, share your money. And so for years, what we did, like, is like 20% of my income will always go to educating poorer people in third world countries. But the great story of that is one of my students, or one of my mentoring subjects, went on to university in Boston. He was sponsored by Nuala Hammond Hughes, right, okay, who was one of our team. And he went on and he got a job in the bank. And they make $240 a year, right, okay, in income. He went on to make $120,000 a year working in a bank. And every year he sends 40,000 back to the village. The power of one.
Beautiful.
Now, philanthropy, you know, is everywhere. So on that note, like usually what I do is myself, I have a little bell. And I breathe. You know, you did the earlier lesson earlier, Eamon, right, okay, but I believe every time I get excited or things like that, I ring that bell and I have it with me and I just put it down and I just breathe 10 seconds, you know, and give me that. So on that note, I'll leave you go on that. That's my story about my underpants, by the way. I have lots of other stories I can keep going for hours, but I won't. And don't forget, sign into my newsletter, join us in the Forever Young Club, like on the coffee mornings, and just write to me, pat@falvey.com. I'll take it in. And we'll be setting up again in relation to that whole Forever Young Club.
Wonderful, absolutely beautiful. One more time, ladies and gentlemen. What an amazing guest, an amazing guest. Thank you for taking the time out. Yeah, indeed, namaste, namaste. Folks, if you're around tomorrow, if you can recover from that whirlwind, guest in the cafe tomorrow, last day of the week, is a guy I've known for many years. His name is Pádraig Frawley, and Pádraig Frawley owns the Corn Store group of restaurants. One in Cork, I believe, one in Limerick for sure, has the brand Cockbull, and also has the East London Pub Company. And he's a fascinating character with another incredible backstory, very different but incredible backstory. He's my guest on the Coffee at 11 show tomorrow. So if you've got time, you know where we'll be. You have the link. It's the same link, by the way, every day. I keep forgetting to say that. It's the same link every single day. That's the cafe link. And you know where we'll be. Folks, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. I'm going to finish the show, as I always do, by thanking the team. Thank you, Princess Shelley, for producing today's show. Eamon Smith for keeping us safe and secure. Katrina O'Brien in advance for making this beautiful this evening, and we'll be sharing it out on social media later tonight. I want to thank wigwam.ie SME Peer Support for their ongoing support. And in particular, I want to thank my guest, Pat Falvey, for taking the time out and sharing that unbelievably beautiful story with us. Thank you, Pat. Namaste.
Namaste.